In this lesson we're going to look at our contact page, and we're going to look at the form, and we're going to see how MODX deals with forms and input data. The first thing to do is download another extra. This time it's an extra called Formit. Okay, so that's Formit installed. The next thing to do is find our form, and our form is on the contact page, and it's in the template of that contact page. So we'll go to the template and we'll edit that document. So here's the form. Now Formit is going to process that form, so we need a call to the Formit plugin. Usually when we call a MODX tag, the information is cached, so there's not lots of processing going on all the time on every call, so it eases the load on the server. But Formit, we're going to want to work on the form every time. We're going to want to do some work on the values in the form, the values that are returned by the form. So we want to call Formit uncached, and the way you call MODX tags uncached is by putting an exclamation mark at the beginning. And now we need to tell Formit what to do in relation to the form. So the way we do that is by passing it some arguments, giving it some information about the form and how it should act. These are the minimum arguments we need for the form to send the information to us. So the first one is hooks, and hooks are little bits of code we want to run when the form is submitted. The email template is a template of the email we want to receive, and the email to is where we want the form to send the data. We haven't got the email chunk, the email template yet, so we need to create that. So if we go to chunks and then create my email chunk, and then this is what that looks like. And all this is an HTML template that holds these new MODX tags that we've not seen before, and these tags are placeholders for the variables from our form. So they're the subject, name, message and email, which correspond to the values in our form. So we've got name, email, subject and message. So when the form submitted, those variables will be passed to our my email chunk. So let's try that out. Fill the contact form with some data. Send a message. So that form data has been processed. We'll deal with giving better feedback in a minute. First, let's see if we've received that. So yes. So here's that email with the data in the form. It's from Fred at XYZ. A subject, name Fred, a message, and there's his email again. You'll notice there's no subject in the email, so we're going to deal with that as well. So let's give the user some feedback. So to give the user some feedback, what we need to do is add a page that they go to after the form's been submitted. So we redirect them to a page. So we need to create that page now. So we'll do that now. So we go to the resource tree and find the contact form. Right click on the contact form and then choose create document here, and then add some feedback. Save that. The resource tree has refreshed, and we can see that the contact feedback is a child of the Contact Us page, and we can also see that it's in italics. So that means we've not published it yet. So let's publish it so that the user can see it. So save. And also we don't want this page appearing in any menu, so we'll click the hide from menu checkbox. So let's go and have a look at our contact form again. Contact. So something's gone wrong there. So what has happened is that when we added the contact feedback page as a child of the contact page, you'll notice that icon changed into a folder. So MODX is treating the contact page like a folder now. It hasn't got contact.html, which it had before. So to change that, we'll go to the contact page itself, and then in the settings tab there's some checkboxes here, and one of them is container. So if we unclick that and save that, then it shouldn't treat contact, even though it's still a folder there. It won't, MODX won't treat it as a folder in the URL. Contact. So we've got our contact form back again. Now we also wanted the emails we received to have a subject line. So let's deal with that now. If we go back to the template and our format tag, we need to add a variable, another variable that the email hook can read, and that one is called email subject. So let's send another message using our contact form. I've filled in the form. Let's see what happens when I send it. So the form has been processed, but it hasn't gone to our feedback page, so we need to look into that. But first, let's see if we've received the email, and we have. There it is. From xxxx@xyz.com, and the email now has a subject header, so we'll know we're getting it from our website whenever we receive an email now. So the reason why we're not getting sent to the feedback page after filling the form in and sending it is for two reasons. And the first reason is we are actually getting sent to the feedback page, as you can see from the URL, contactfeedback.html, but it's still the form, and that's because we're still using the contact template, and what we need to do is use the generic template, because that allows us to add our content to the page. And the other reason is we need to add another hook to the hooks in format. The hooks are little snippets of code that get executed when the form is submitted, and we need to add one called redirect to tell format to redirect using the redirect to variable after the form has been submitted. Try again. Yes, thanks for contacting us, hooray. So we've successfully set up a form on our website, and the user can now send us data, and they'll receive feedback thanking them for their data. The next thing we need to do is check that the data that they input is valid data, so we need to do some form validation. And the way to do form validation in MODX using format is to add the variable validate, and then we tell validate which values to deal with. So we give it a list separated by commas of the values in our form. So there's name, email, subject and message. That's the first value. And then after the colon, we tell validate what to do with those values. So we're telling it, in this case, that name is required, email has to be an email, and validate will check that it's got the @ sign in it and the correct number of dots, and it's also required. And the form must have a subject, that's required, and also the message is required. But any message that's typed in, we want to, any HTML tags or any other tags that are in there, we want to strip them out, because we don't want any malicious user trying to trick our system into doing something that we don't want it to do. The next step is to give the user some feedback in case what they've typed in isn't valid. And the way to do that is to add some MODX format tags to the form. So the first tag we'll add is a feedback tag. So this tag's got a little more going on than tags we've seen before. So let's have a closer look. We can see that it's a placeholder because of the plus sign, and we can also see that it's got a prefix. Now this prefix can be set in the format call, and that's in case we've got more than one form on a page, so we can distinguish between those forms. We can also see that the placeholder is being called uncached because of the exclamation mark. And in this tag we're seeing an item that we've not seen before, and this is a conditional modifier. And what this modifier does is it's saying that if the placeholder validation error message is not empty, then we want to output this value, which is the error message enclosed in paragraph tags. So let's try that. We'll just go to the contact form and submit it without filling out any fields. So we've got the message there: a form validation error occurred, please check the values you have entered. And obviously you can make that more prominent by using CSS to make it bold and red, but we'll just leave it as it is for this demonstration. But how does the user know which field they've made an error in? I mean, it's obvious here, but they may have filled in all the fields. There may be a lot more fields, and it may not be obvious which field they haven't filled in properly. So we want to give them some indication of which field they need to fill in again. So to do that, we need to go back to our form and add some more tags. Let's add an error message for our name field in our form to start with. So this tag is of the same form as our general error message that we did earlier. It looks to see if there's an error message for the name field in this placeholder, and if that's not empty, it says OK, let's output that error message in a span next to our name field. And I've given this span the class error so we can highlight it a bit so it's easy for our user to see. So let's add that class as well to our general error message. So let's see how that works in practice. If we go to our contact form again and fill out the form with some data in these fields, except we've not added any data to the name field, so let's see what happens. Okay, so we've got an error message that's clearly visible, so the user knows where they've gone wrong, but we've lost the data they did put in. So we want to remedy that. We don't want to have to make them fill the fields in again, because they'll just go away, they'll just get annoyed. To do that, we go back to the form and use another format placeholder for each of the input fields, and this placeholder will populate that field if it has a value for that field. I've added the placeholders for all the fields in the form. So let's go and see what happens now. So I've filled the form in with some data, except the subject line. I missed the subject line out this time. Send message. So we get the appropriate error message in the appropriate place, so the user can see that they need to add a subject. Send message, and they get the feedback page. So that all seems to be working properly now. So that's the basics of one way of getting information from your users via a form on the website using MODX and using the Formit plugin. Formit can deal with a lot more situations than I've shown here. I've just shown you the basics of getting this form that was in our free template working, but you can deal with, Formit can use reCAPTCHA, it can deal with spam, it can deal with checkboxes and radio boxes. So to find out how to do that, you'll need to do a bit more research. Google MODX Formit, and there's some good online documentation about how to get the most from Formit and use it for the forms on your website.